All right, everybody. So we're going to talk about factoring by grouping. And every time we talk about a factoring process, I'm going to talk about the multiplication process that goes along with it, because multiplying out and factoring are opposites of each other. So we should be looking at the multiplication process and see how the factoring process is doing it in reverse. So we're going to talk about factoring by grouping in this video. And the reverse of that is foiling. So foiling is first, outer, inner, last, but I want to explain why it works the way it does. So when we're talking about foiling, in general, we're using the distributive property. So we're saying this first term here has to get distributed to this set of parentheses. So I'm actually going to write that out, which I don't normally do when I'm foiling. And then the second term here, which is added, has to be distributed to the set of parentheses as well. Now you're looking at each of those individual sets of parentheses, and you can distribute those things in. So let's see, that's 8x squared. By the way, that's the corresponding first term. That's the first terms multiplied by each other. Minus 10x, that's the outer terms times each other, 2x and negative 5. Plus 12x, that's the inner terms. And then minus 15, those are the last terms. So I just added that extra step because it's going to make the factoring thing that we do make sense. And then I can combine like terms. So, all right. Now factoring is the reverse of this process. So essentially what I want to do when I factor is do the process that we just did in the opposite direction. So the first thing I want to do is get these two numbers that were combined into this middle term. Now how do we do that? Well, the negative 10 came from 2 times negative 5, right? And the 12 came from 3 times 4. So those, all four of those numbers went into making those two numbers in the middle. Now, if you also look at the first number, 8, that came from the 2 times 4, and the negative 15 came from 3 and negative 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first and last terms, and we're going to, the numbers, and we're going to multiply those together. Now, 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. Now that negative 24 is going to contain all the numbers that we need in my factorization. In order to figure out what specific numbers we need, though, we're going to need more information. And notice how these two numbers added to give us this. So I not only want two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, I want the same two numbers to add to give me negative 5. So I can think of factors of negative 24. Let's see, 2 and negative 12, no. Those add to give me negative 10. Oops, sorry. 4 negative 6, no, those add to give me negative 2. However, I don't want to just keep randomly guessing, because I notice my sum has to be negative 5. Notice this sum was negative 10, this sum was negative 2. This is in between those, which means if I'm going to have factors that work, they fall in between 2 and 4. So let's see, 3. Negative 8, hey, that works. So what that means that these two numbers are like these two over here in my multiplication process. So I'm going to write out those steps. Let's see, 3x squared. I'm going to use those two numbers to rewrite this into two terms with x's on them. Now, doesn't matter which order you do it. If you put the 3x first and the negative 8 on the second one, that would be perfectly fine. All right, so now I want to do this step. Let me change colors. This step. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to group my first two terms together, put an addition in between, and then whatever sign was here goes with the number that was there, so that would be plus 3x. And then I'm going to look to see if I can undistribute any numbers in the parentheses, or factors at all. So the first set of parentheses, notice there's a common factor of x. So I'm going to undistribute that. When I do that, I'm left with 3x minus 8. In the second set of parentheses, if I look at these two things, I may look at those two numbers and go, wait, there's not a common factor between 3x and negative 8. I guess I just don't write anything. But remember, every single pair of numbers in the world has a common factor, and that common factor is 1. So in this case, I would actually write the 1, even though it doesn't look like there's anything there, there is. There's a +1 there. Now, once you do that, if you have done all your factorization right, the stuff in parentheses, right here, should match up. If it doesn't match up, you've done something wrong. Now, if it does match up, that means this term and this term have a common factor, and that's that 3x minus 8. So I'm going to undistribute it, which means I pulled it out of both terms. When I pull it out of this term, I'm left with an x. When I pull it out of this term, I'm left with a 1. That is my other factor.